This is a tub of soft scoop vanilla ice cream from the UK grocery store Morrison's. Well, it was meant to be. I got tricked into buying it. It looked very similar to what I actually wanted, which was this, which is the vanilla soft scoop ice cream from Morrison's. But I've got a problem with it, maybe four. Despite being called soft scoop vanilla ice cream, not only is it hard to scoop, it contains no milk, it contains no cream, and it contains no vanilla. So that's weird, right? Somehow it's legally allowed to be called vanilla ice cream, even though it's missing every key ingredient you would expect in vanilla ice cream. And this isn't an isolated case. In fact, looking at the ice cream I accidentally picked up, the same exact thing. As we're gonna be exploring later on in this video, a shocking number of UK ice creams, I'm talking 50%, are just as similar as these two. And it's a problem that the US has thwarted completely, whereas the UK have willingly enabled. For those of you that were horrified by the comments I made last week about how American creamer that we put in our coffee is essentially vegetable oil, I've got bad news for you. UK ice cream, if you still wanna call it that after this video, isn't far off from really cold American creamer. But to start off small, my comment in last week's video taking my girlfriend around my US hometown about how 99% of soft serve ice cream in Britain is a Mister Whippy, that stirred up, or rather whipped up, quite a lot of controversy that all stems from what you call ice cream. So when I say to you, do you want to go get an ice cream? What's the first thing that comes to mind? What type of ice cream? You've got quite a few options. To some people, you might think of a soft serve in a cone like a Mister Whippy. Others may think of ice cream on a stick, like packaged up like a Magnum, or hard scoopable ice cream, or gelato, Italian style ice cream. There are many more options. What your default ice cream is a bit contingent on where you're from. I've lived over 20 years in the States and over 12 years in the UK. And from personal experience, I would say generally, if someone from the US from my area on the East Coast said to me, do you want to go get an ice cream? The default would be this, a Philadelphia style soft serve ice cream, or possibly a frozen custard style, most likely in a cone, and because from my area, with a little bit of Jimmy's on top. Whereas if a Brit asked me if I wanted to go get an ice cream, it would generally lean more towards one of these, a packaged ice cream that you get at your local shop, like a Magnum or a Chalk Ice or a Cornetto or a Fab, sometimes more of an Italian ice cream, gelato style in a cone. Now this isn't the case 100% of the time, more just something I've picked up on in general. I did specify from my area, by the way, because I'm sure that if there's any Midwesterners in my audience, their default is probably going to be more of a frozen custard, as that's huge in that area. And those from Massachusetts would probably think more of their New England style ice cream, which is chewier and has more of an elastic texture, perfect for mixing in toppings. Even though Cold Stone Creamery was invented in Arizona, I'd say that that style leans a bit more towards New England, but that'll probably get me like killed if I ever visit Boston, so let me just take that back. And there are far more styles of ice cream than just these in the US alone. But the topic at hand is words are really cool, just like ice cream. And having different words at your disposal to describe the different styles of ice cream allows you to communicate subtle differences in texture, richness, tradition, making each type of ice cream feel as unique as it tastes. When I say I want a pizza, the first thing that pops into my mind is, the type of boardwalk pizza I grew up with. Chicagoans might think of their weird casserole thing. Brits probably think of Napoli-style pizza, or more tragically, Domino's. Where I'm from, the use of the terms ice cream and frozen custard are often used interchangeably, which probably stems from the fact that back in the day, traditional ice cream was made with egg yolks, so there wasn't really a need for any sort of distinction until the rise of more commercial ice cream parlors that created ways of making ice cream without eggs, sometimes using milk proteins or stabilizers and emulsifiers like guar gum or carrageenan, which comes from a seaweed. This allowed manufacturers to achieve a smooth texture without eggs, and thus created the need for different words to be used for this different style of ice cream. Though many locals may continue to use one word as a catch-all for convenience, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you want another good example of this, Tom Scott has an excellent video on how in Britain, even though vinegar is a very specific thing, and oftentimes what chip shops offer customers is not by definition vinegar, but rather non-brewed condiment, everyone just calls it vinegar anyway, as in this specific case, doesn't really matter. But I am very happy to learn that there is a distinction I can use to specify the type of ice cream I enjoy. If I could be better understood by using a different term to refer to these two different styles of ice cream, Philadelphia style soft serve and frozen custard, hell yeah. I'm actually more than happy to update my local parlance, though I'll still probably stick to calling the places that sell them custard stands. But that brings us to the law. For those of you that don't know, by definition in the USA, the term frozen custard cannot be used to describe a product unless it contains at least 1.4% egg yolk solids by weight and has a minimum of 10% milk fat. These standards were set by the US Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, and ensure that frozen custard has a richer, creamier texture compared to regular ice cream, which may not contain eggs at all. If a product does not meet this specific criteria, it must be labeled as ice cream, or if it doesn't even meet that criteria, it's gotta be labeled something like dairy dessert or ice milk, but not frozen custard, which is a thing which, by the way, is incredibly rare in the UK. The only custard that's really popular here is the hot version Brits pour on every dessert. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's actually quite nice. But the 10% milk fat rule in the US also applies to the word ice cream, which is why Dairy Queen, a popular chain of drive-through ice cream restaurants, refer to their product as a vanilla cone. Dairy Queen's vanilla cone only has 5% milk fat in it, so they can't legally use the term ice cream in the US. Across the pond in jolly old England, Dairy Queen would be able to call their product ice cream, as the UK laws on this are much more lax. Much more lax than you'd probably like to know. I love how generally the US FDA has way fewer laws on what we're allowed to eat, or rather, what companies are allowed to put in their products compared to other countries, something I have made an entire video about. But when it comes to ice cream, this is where the FDA draws the line. They're like, excuse me? This is important to us, okay? So yeah, the FDA has decided that ice cream is an important thing to protect in the US. However, the law in the UK, up until 2015, stated that ice cream must contain at least 5% fat. Now, you didn't mishear me there. I said 5% fat. Not 5% milk fat or 5% butter fat, just fat. So this is not only significantly worse quality ice cream at the minimum standard, but in the UK, manufacturers can choose to use vegetable oils for their fat content rather than cream. But to be fair to the UK, they have had to create an extra term, dairy ice cream, specifically for when an ice cream actually uses dairy. Hooray. Adam Ragusea, or a YouTuber I'd be absolutely terrified of being on the wrong side of, made a really well-made video a few months back about this interesting distinction between Dairy Queen's soft serve vanilla cone and the FDA's definition of ice cream. And I like how he put it that we can view this style ice cream as more of a low-fat, lower-calorie ice cream, which is still nice and serves a purpose. I do understand where he's coming from when he says that he doesn't let the government dictate what he calls ice cream, but as we'll see in the case of the UK, maybe those government definitions are a little bit more useful than you'd think. Adam, please don't hurt me. I love you. Thank you. Bye. At the end of the day, though, ice cream with a higher milk fat percentage is generally regarded as creamier, smoother, and subjectively a lot tastier. But to provide some interesting context, there was a thread in the casual UK subreddit a bit ago where a Brit asked an honest question. Is it just me, or has ice cream quality in this country gone down the shitter these past 10 years? It seems like any brand other than maybe Ben & Jerry's is some weird air-filled watery nonsense. Or am I just being fussy? Well, I don't actually think you're being that fussy. It's an astute observation, most definitely, and considering Brits have had the experience of having their beloved milk chocolate Cadbury bought by an American company, Kraft, only to have them remove what made it taste great in the first place, the milk, and thus left Brits with a depressingly inferior product, I feel like Brits are well accustomed to the enshittification of things they once held dear. But this Redditor was actually more on the nose than they thought. Why has ice cream in the UK gotten so much worse in the last 10 years? Or maybe more specifically, in the last 9? Well, you know that paltry 5% fat rule that's only half of what it is in the States? Well, in 2015, the UK passed a law completely removing that threshold. So now you can sell ice cream, if you want to call it that, in the UK with 0 milk and 0 cream. Hooray! According to The Guardian, the change was brought in to enable more products, such as vegan and reduced fat versions, to be labeled as ice cream on the open market. All right, so rather than take the US route of protecting the term ice cream and creating other words for similar treats in the UK and EU, they found it best to leave it up to the massive food manufacturers who, as you know, always have our best intentions at heart. So I mean, in theory, this can be seen as a positive for vegans who want to tell themselves they're eating ice cream. I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but in reality, all it did was tell UK ice cream manufacturers that they can now cut every possible corner for the rest of us to squeeze higher margins out of selling ice cream that is not ice cream, like this one. Real ice cream. I did just pop into my local Morrison's twice to get this tub of vanilla soft scoop, a family favorite. Sorry, a real family favorite. Ironic. Let's have a look at the ingredients on this bad boy, shall we? We've got partially reconstituted skim milk concentrate, glucose syrup, sugar, vegetable oils, that being coconut oil, palm stearin oil, palm kernel oil, whey powder, dextrose, emulsifier, diglycerides, fatty acids, flavorings, stabilizers, and colors. Yum, yum, yum. Wow, I didn't know you could pack that many different vegetable oils into this, but here we are. You know what? That was actually a pretty soft scoop. The people online lied to me. So this has no vanilla, it has no cream. I don't think that whey powder or skimmed milk concentrate really counts as milk, but let's try it. It's not that bad. I was gonna say, it's ice cream. It's not ice cream! This is not ice cream. It's not bad, it's just not ice cream. It does have quite a chewy bite to it. I'm also cutting, this is my last bite. That melts so fast in your mouth, he says, taking one more bite. Huh, whoa. It's kind of like cotton candy / candy floss in that you put it in your mouth and it just melts immediately to some sort of liquid. but I mean, it's all right. It just tastes like really low quality ice cream with my fill of seed oils for the month, I guess. Now these two ice creams that I ended up buying from my local Morrison's do suffer from not having any milk, cream, or vanilla, but it's not just these two. Even the Carte d'Or, which I believe is supposed to be marketed as more of a luxurious ice cream, same exact schlop. And you know what? That's probably why the surprising witch investigation found out that not only was 50% of UK vanilla ice cream missing milk, cream, or vanilla, but 1 in 5 were missing all three, like those two that I have in my freezer now, which I guess I'm just gonna, I don't know, have to shovel off to people that visit my house. Like, you want any ice cream? You want any frozen vegetable oil? So if you, like the Redditor, were wondering, why does all this ice cream taste so shit recently? That's why. UK manufacturers have replaced what gives good ice cream its creamy taste and texture, that being cream, with palm oil, with coconut oil, with palm kernel oil, and water. Delicious. Now, this hasn't been all at once, by the way. It's been a slow and steady process until hopefully you forgot what used to be passable ice cream at 5% fat. Now, for people that leave reviews on individual food items on grocery store websites, I don't know what you do for a living, but hey, not judging, thanks to the content. This comes from the Morrison's ice cream that I just had. We have tastes weird, definitely not soft scoop, strange, almost bubblegum flavor, not nice, 1 star. Then we have doesn't taste great, when it melts, goes straight to really liquidy instead of like cream, 1 star. I very much agree with that. And then we have read ingredients. Bought thinking iced cream as iced cream, but not. Kids hated it, and that's shocking. Not soft scoop unless you have a highly sharpened ninja sword. Gave it to the dogs in the end. 5 stars. Wow, well, I guess the dogs liked it. But it is important to note that not all ice cream is like this here. It's just you have to go out of your way to places in the UK that specialize in making actual high milk fat dairy ice cream. And these places should be applauded, but the standard legally required is quite literally on the vegetable oil soaked floor. Now, it is worth noting that the US isn't immune to the use of these cheaper ingredients either. In fact, you'll find ice creams in US grocery stores that also use vegetable oils and other fillers, but the catch is, in the US, if a product does not contain at least 10% milk fat, they can't legally call it ice cream. So many companies are opting to use the higher quality ingredients to retain that coveted ice cream label, rather than being downgraded to a term like frozen dessert or ice milk. This subtle difference in regulation ensures that US consumers are still getting something closer to what we traditionally think of as ice cream, a superior product, while UK manufacturers have much more leeway. And much more profit, I suppose. I would personally argue that calling this reconstituted mix of vegetable oils and whey powder ice cream is false advertising. But the UK have chosen their side. They've chosen to allow customers to be misled for the ability to enable more products. Yeah, more shit products, but more products, that's what we need. What a huge win for the UK, right? It's Cadbury's all over again. Except this one, you guys just kind of let happen because you didn't realize it was happening, maybe. I don't know, maybe you're just used to Mister Whippy. But speaking of Mister Whippy, there's a reason why I was so easily able to convert Heather to the side of our New Jersey ice creams. Because truly, it's no competition at all. The standard for soft serve ice cream in the US is pretty much a luxury in the UK. For those of you old enough to remember it, think back about how Cadbury's used to taste before Kraft bought it. Remember what a cream egg used to taste like when it had good chocolate instead of Easter chocolate around it? Compare that taste with what you think of Hershey's chocolate, what you think Hershey's tastes like. Think of that delta of taste, right? That delta in taste is pretty much the same size as the delta between UK and US ice cream, with the US coming out as the victor in that regard. The only place America really has the moral high ground when it comes to having fewer ultra-processed ingredients, surprisingly ice cream. Hey, well, take that as a win. If you're an Australian, you probably feel the same way about coffee as I do about soft serve ice cream, or if you're German, bread, Dutch, cycle lanes, anywhere you go is pretty much a step down. And because I can't leave you without one last nugget of interesting ice cream information, I know you wanted me to deep dive on this because I don't know, I just kept tunneling deeper into ice cream knowledge. If you live on the East Coast in the US, you most likely grew up hearing about Mister Softee. You'd hear the Mister Softee ice cream truck go around your neighborhood. The brand was founded in Philadelphia in 1956 and has been based in Runnymede in South Jersey since 1958, so people from my part of South Jersey can get quite passionate about the brand. Also, in terms of ice cream from ice cream trucks, Mister Softee is some of the best, all things considered. And as an added fact, William and James Conway, the brothers that created Mister Softee, were pretty much the Henry Ford of what we now know as the modern-day ice cream truck. The iconic music box-style song that played out of the truck was actually an original song created for Mister Softee. It even has lyrics to it. I'll leave both links in the description for both versions for your listening pleasure. But something else interesting happened in 1958. One Dominic Ficino, an Italian-British businessman, visited the States and he witnessed the success of Mister Softee. He wanted to license the brand in the UK, but was rejected as Mister Softee was already planning to branch out into the UK. So Ficino came back to England, set up shop in Birmingham, and essentially just ripped off the entire idea as quickly as possible, calling his version Mister Whippy, to have it as closely associated with Mister Softee as he could. And he even took the idea of the music box style song that would play out of the ice cream vans, except rather than create anything original, no, Mister Whippy just went with a copyright-free song Greensleeves to more closely tie it to British culture. Since then, Mister Whippy has become hugely popular in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. There's also a famous myth in the UK that milk snatcher Margaret Thatcher helped invent the soft serve ice cream due to her time working as a food scientist at J. Lyons in the 1950s, who went on to develop, emulsifiers that would later become more popular in soft serve ice cream. This couldn't really be further from the truth though, because in the US, soft serve ice cream was already wildly popular, with brands like Dairy Queen being created in 1940s, with Stewart's of root beer fame, the 1920s, and many local ice cream parlors dotting throughout the US, which allowed for a lot of competition and variance in soft serve ice cream styles. So the name Mister Softee would just be one brand name in a large array of other brand names. So no one really had the strength to say we're the Google or the Kleenex or the, just generic trademark name for the ice cream, because soft serve ice cream was really well established in the US at that time. The UK though, well, that's a different story. You see, in the UK, Ficino introduced Mister Whippy and aggressively franchised the brand until it was bought by ice cream juggernaut Walls. The country had little to no soft serve ice cream, with most ice cream being served being the standard hand-dipped hard ice cream or Italian gelato style. So it goes without saying that the major reason most Brits refer to most all soft serve ice cream as a Mister Whippy is because culturally they never knew anything different. And even as other brands are introduced, it's too late. The name Mister Whippy just stuck to the point where now, in the eyes of the public, it has achieved that status of generic trademark like Google and Hoover. Though legally speaking, just want to point out, I tunneled too far for this video. Legally speaking, the parent company of Mister Whippy, Unilever, has retained exclusive rights to its name for ice cream, Mister Whippy, as of 2020 when they won a lawsuit. So, how much information do you want to know about ice cream? And like I said, you can still find real dairy ice cream being made in the UK. Overwhelmingly, it's not soft serve, it's hard hand-dipped ice cream or gelato, which is great, but not the same thing. Like, I love Jaluppo in central London, I love Adano's, I love Fubert's, both in Chiswick. All three of these are Italian gelato-style ice cream, not soft serve, the thing that I want. I will say, when it comes to hard ice cream that you can buy at the store in the freezer aisle, my ice cream of choice is always Kelly's of Cornwall for their clotted cream ice cream. It's delicious. If you are blessed enough to live out that way in the southwest of the country, I'd love to hear how nice the Kelly's soft serve ice cream is, as supposedly they do that. Kelly's have their own ice cream vans, and I'm like, come on over to London. All we got is a Mister Whippy shit. And it's like, what, 5% milk fat? It's so tasteless, and I just want real ice cream out here in London. Is that difficult? Turns out, yeah, because legally speaking, you can call anything ice cream these days. It's just annoying that good quality ice cream here isn't ubiquitous. You have to seek it out. And I know throughout this entire video, you're probably thinking, Evan, what the hell? It's just ice cream. Guess what? It's not just ice cream. The fact that we've allowed this insane amount of consolidation in the food industry to the point where there are currently only 10 actual companies creating the overwhelming majority of food and drink consumed is incredibly concerning. I discuss this more in depth in next week's video on supermarkets, but even if you were upset at the decreasing quality in Mister Whippy, and you were like, I'm not gonna have Mister Whippy anymore, well, as discussed, there's not many other options in most of the UK. You have to go out of your way to find one. And even if you're like, well, fine, I just want a packaged ice cream. Well, as we talked about, Mister Whippy's parent company, Unilever, they make all of these ice creams. And yes, they have made sure that all these ice creams are just good enough for you to remember what they used to taste like, but they're able to fill them with more vegetable oils and things so that way they can make more profits. And hey, we did a consumer study and it's good enough. We can make more money this way. And so you're like, well, fine, I'll ignore all of these ice creams. What other company is there? Well, you've always got Nestle. They definitely have a clean track record, right? So, yeah. Anyway, I would like you to sound off in this video if you also feel like the taste in ice cream in the UK has gone downhill in the last couple years. And more importantly, I would like to know, what is the best ice cream you've ever had packaged, like a Magnum type thing? And what is the best type of ice cream you've had for real? as in like either scooped, either soft serve. I want to add some things to my bucket list. Otherwise, as I said, next video is going to be on supermarkets, hopefully coming out next Sunday. And if you're in the future, it'll be right here. Thanks for watching. Ice cream, goodbye. You scream, I scream, we all scream for vegetable oil. You scream, I scream, we all scream for vegetable oil. Give me those seeds in my belly, I don't want cream, that's so smelly. Rather have a seed inside my tongue, yum, 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 yum. I'm done. That was the quickest I've ever done improv.